vice presidential candidate Senator Bong Go has hinted on possible changes regarding his candidacy.
Gustuhin ko mang magsilbi sa inyo bilang inyong vice presidente dahil sa kagustuhan ng ating mahal na Pangulo. Kailangan ko pong umiwas. Malalaman niyo lang po yan sa darating na araw.
Or Inday Sara has always been very clear about saying that she is not running for the presidency, meaning that it's not a presidency. So I think she's a little bit, I think, open to the vice presidency if I'm not mistaken.
As speculated on and expected by many observers, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte has withdrawn her mayoral candidacy in Davao a few days prior to the November 15 deadline of COC filing. Is Mayor Sara gunning, therefore, for a national post? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this edition of The Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay. With us online in Manila, aming pamintuan of the Philippine Star, and here in Mandaluyong in our studios, Ed Lingao of One News. Chiefs.
Evening.
Ami, sige nga. Paano mo sasaksak lahat ng nangyari ngayon sa isang headline bukas?
Nasabi na sa umpisa ng show natin, ito yung malaking istorya. Pero actually, ang pinag-uusapan ngayon, were you surprised? Surprised ba kayo? From the start naman, may spekulasyon na ganyan eh.
Oh, pero it still leaves a lot of questions, di ba? It still leaves that question, presidency or vice presidency?
Dahil si Senator Bong Go yung nagsasabi na baka mag-drop out siya, well, hindi pa rin natin sigurado kung ano mangyayari.
Oo.
Yeah. Ang daming surprises, pero you can expect a lot more surprises before or by the 15th. Kasi ang daming unresolved issues eh. Will Sara run for president or vice president? And who runs for mayor of Davao City to protect the Duterte bastion there?
Di ba? Kahit dati, kausap natin si Earl Parenya, sinasabi niya nga, everything is local.
Yeah.
And we still have to look
yeah.
at their interest, the Duterte's interest in Davao, and hindi raw sila sureball doon.
Of course, si Sara said that si Baste is taking over her candidacy. Pero that's still a big question. Yeah, but that's still a big question mark eh. If Baste can raise the banner to Duterte's, considering it's his first political term as vice mayor, and he ran pa unopposed in 2019.
Actually, kanina sa statement ni Sara Duterte, meron dong line na for now. Napa-double take ako. Did she mean for now na si Baste muna, or for now ito muna ang statement ko? Anyway, we'll get into that later. We'll talk a little more politics later. We will be talking about what we've been talking about over the past few moments. But for now, pag-usapan muna natin usapang LGU. Lalong-lalo na itong usapan sa mga face shields. We have with us Undersecretary Itumako Densing of the Department of Interior and Local Government. Yusek Densing, welcome to the Chiefs.
Good afternoon, good evening, Robbie. Ed and Amy, magandang gabi.
Okay. Sir, first of all, linawin lang po natin, di ba? Because a number of LGUs, the most latest of whom are Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, have unilaterally decided and scrapped that policy on face shields. The national government is reminding, oy, teka muna, this comes straight from the President. So alin po mananaig dito?
Well, right now the guidance is let's not quarrel anymore. Anyway, this was something that would have been decided last week. The lifting of the face shields in general terms. Since ilang araw lang naman bago mag-Thursday, and there's already a formal agenda that we will talk about when the face shield will be used. Depending on the alert levels and situations, no quarrel na muna ang national government with the local governments, no? But again, I would like to repeat that had this been in a different situation where there are high cases and high alert levels, then we would have insisted that they should align themselves with the national policy of wearing face shield in 3Cs areas.
Yusek, linawin ko lang po if I'm hearing you right. Are you saying that, look, doon naman talaga papunta to, and we're just waiting for this to be formalized? And secondly, doesn't that and what you just said now, na wala na lang away, does that effectively just leave the door open for all LGUs to implement what they want starting tomorrow?
Well, not necessarily. That's why we, sinabi ni presidential spokesperson na that's supposed to be null and void from the very beginning because it's violative of existing protocols or executive orders issued by the president through the IATF. So dahil malapit na hindi na rin natin yan pag-awayan. Yun ang pananaw ng aming bossing, no? Secretary Anyo. And I do agree with him. Kung yung bagay lang pag-uusapan, wag na lang siguro, no? It will create trouble. Considering na mababa na rin naman ang mga kaso. But we still maintain that the President, under Local Government Code, Section 25, and in accordance with Administrative Order 267, where the general supervision is delegated to the Department of Interior and Local Government, we maintain that we have supervision over all local governments.
Pero sir, don't the LGUs have the authority to decide on their own under the local government code what to do based on ordinances that they enact? Kasi in the end, sir, di ba, in the end, the IATF cannot enact laws or ordinances. They may lay down policy for the executive, but they cannot force the LGUs to penalize people na wala ng ordinance.
Under normal environment, kung wala tayong pandemic ngayon and there's no declaration of a national public health emergency, wala tayong problema dyan. We will just let them be, no? But because of a national public health emergency where all local governments are affected by this pandemic, and this is the reason why there's an IATF, and the President has made it a point under a national public health emergency that all protocols or health protocols related to this COVID-19 response should be all aligned. And that is part of the police power of the President and all other officials that everybody has to be aligned in its addressing of the COVID-19 response. Under normal circumstances, kung walang national public health emergency or national state of calamity, wala tayong problema dyan. Pero kailangan align po ito because all the experts are in the national government. All the scientists and the medical experts, the epidemiologists are in the national government.
Yes, sir.
Yun ang dahilan kung bakit kailangan sila sumunod.
Yes, sir. We understand, sir. Pero my question is, ano yung panghuhugutan ninyo ng legal basis to suspend or to enact any sanction over LGUs who do not want to comply with what the DILG and the IATF wants to do? Kasi, sir, ito example, yung IATF Resolution number 88 noong December 14, 2020, which imposed the face shield rule last year. In fact, may rider yung resolution na yun doon sa face shield. Sabi niya, subject to fair and humane penalties or punishments that are imposed by the LGUs. So in the end, aakot kayo sa LGUs to
we were saying in our statistics around close to 60% of the LGUs nationwide have ordinances that penalizes their constituency who does not follow minimum public health standards, including wearing of face shields. On the other hand, since this is a national policy and effectively it is part of the executive policy by the President through the IATF, dapat sumunod lahat. And everybody was following. Ang point ko lang dito, Ed, is Sunday night, we met with the Metro Manila Council, all the mayors, no? And they agreed that they will support the position of Secretary Anyo when this will be discussed this Thursday's IATF, that on the lifting and of the face shields with specific conditions kung saan lang ito isusuot. So everybody agreed. Tapos biglang the next days itong mga opisyalis ng itong mga mayors biglang nag-iba. The other mayors pinagsabihan naman natin. And because of the guidance nga, antayin na lang natin yung Thursday. Anyway, lahat naman low risk na halos eh. So the face shield has effectively become irrelevant. Dapat yung last week pa ito, nawala lang kami ng IATF because we had to attend to meet with the governors and mayors and we were not able to open this in the IATF meeting last week.
So you're saying yung meeting ninyo, yung advisory nyo, kasama si Mayor Isko Moreno, sana nakausap nyo? Kasi yung ibang report sabi wala naman daw siya.
Hindi, pero just the same, it's a Metro Manila Council resolution that they passed Sunday night, no? And they disclosed the next day. At saka ang MMC, lagi yan sila since the very beginning, since last year. Ang decision nila, kung ano yung policy sa isa, policy sa buong National Capital Region. Hindi sila pwedeng magkanya-kanya kasi magkakatabi-katabi lang sila. That has been the policy of the Metro Manila Council since last year, na anything on COVID response, dapat isa lang yung kanilang desisyon, isa lang pag-i-implement nila. Kaya nga maski yung MECQ, MGCQ, isa lang sa kanila. Hindi tayo nag-separate per city because yan ang gusto ng Metro Manila Council.
So under a national public health emergency, anong possible sanctions kung hindi susunod yung local government unit sa national government?
Yeah, usually we send them show cause orders, no, to explain themselves, and administrative usually ang kaso nito. So these are actually administrative cases. So in the case of highly urbanized cities, provinces, and independent component cities, we can either file this with the Office of the President or the Office of the Ombudsman, again for administrative liabilities. We have a legal basis for this. That's why in the past, we've sent show cause order to a number of mayors and governors, and they know that if they do not follow and they do not explain themselves, they will really be filed cases in the Office of the Ombudsman for administrative case, and they can be suspended for it.
But when you say na hindi muna awayin to, wag na muna natin gawa ng gulo to o ng away to, it means we're not expecting any of those kinds of sanctions or actions in the coming days. And at the same time, does that mean that none of this will set any precedent for even other scenarios outside of COVID?
No more, this is just more of exception dahil again, nagpe-face shield tayo to protect ourselves, no? But since many of the local government units are really in the lower alert levels, alert level 2 and alert level 3, medyo mababa na po yung cases nila. So hindi na to issues of concern. So we'll just await the meeting on Thursday, and by that time the IATF would have decided when and where will you be using your face shield or wearing your face shield. But on the general terms, lifted na po ito. Medyo meron na hong even the experts that when we met yesterday in the sub-technical working group on data analytics, they've already agreed na i-lift na rin and identify lang mga situations kung saan magsusuot ng face shield.
Sir, I'm just curious dun sa briefing ng mga experts and in them saying, sige, okay na rin siguro i-lift yan. What was the general message from the experts in terms of, from a technical standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, what is the attitude towards face shields in the first place?
Well, generally, whatever areas where we are imposing such restrictions or prohibitions, since bumababa na nga yung mga kaso, maluwag na yung mga ospital, the healthcare utilization rate has become low risk. The general sentiment of our health experts is really it's time for us to make some loosening of our restrictions in favor of more economic activities and mobility. As long as we practice minimum public health standards, we expect that there will be continuous lowering of cases. Alam nyo, mayroon tayong faster group silang gumagawa ng projections. Nandun talaga yung assumptions. Percentage of people comply with minimum public health standards, percentage of or expected number of vaccinations. May mga assumptions yan. And then from that assumptions, they now make a projection. At nakita natin ho yun, we expect more mobility, higher vaccination rates, and more practice of minimum public health standards. And they saw that with that kind of a situation, even in the NCR, pababa po yung kaso.
Sir, if it... Sige po, go ahead.
We talked to Ana Ong Lim of the Technical Advisory Group and with Yusek Berhere. Pareho silang sinasabi na actually they're still pushing for continued use of face shields.
That's correct. Ayoko lang pangunahan kasi meeting na kami about it. They are more conservative, no? But a decision was already made, and we were going to discuss the proposal on Thursday.
So mukhang tama yung desisyon ni Mayor Isko Moreno, kaya hindi niyo na hinahamon.
Nauna kasi siya napag-usapan to ni Linggo pinag-usapan ng mga mayors to resolve to support the DILG on Thursday's meeting. Sa kanya nilift niya na kaagad hindi siya sumunod sa usapan.
Well, sir, mukhang resolved na yung face shield issue. Pero sir, moving forward, sabi nga ni Robbie, other issues might come up based on the same principles in the future, whether it has to do with face shields or vaccination or whatever. Ang tanong ko po ito if it comes to that, na magsasampa nga ng kaso, whether admin or criminal sa ombudsman, what law was violated po by the LGUs? Ano po yung isasampa natin na kaso?
Well, una sa lahat, again, the process is we will send them a show cause order
Yes,
for
sir.
them to explain.
Yes, sir.
And this is a violation of the Local Government Code. Section 60 of the Local Government enumerates the instances where local officials may be disciplined. No? Kasama na doon yung insert of subordination, dereliction of duty, kaya ang administrative case ito. So pag napatunayan natin hindi sila sumusunod, and part of the major responsibility of local chief executives is really to implement national laws and policies. So if they fail to implement this, especially at a time that we are in a national public health emergency, they will be asked to explain why they are not following these policies. And if we found the explanation wanting, then that's the time we will file cases against them administratively.
Yusek, I was trying to think of an example where, where you will still need everybody to cooperate and to march to the same beat and in the same direction. Tas paano kung hindi pa rin sila sumunod? And then it reminds me of another question na paulit-ulit kami sa inyo. Now that we're reopening, yung certification that you're vaccinated becomes all the more important in all the different establishments. This again brought back the idea of ano nangyari doon sa vaccine IDs natin and what happened for that matter to the interoperability of data being gathered for contact tracing and all other these purposes. For the longest time, parang we're getting the impression that it's because we can't get the local governments to just have their data once and for all going to the same place, becoming interoperable, and so on. So that's where I guess two questions in one yon, di ba? What if pagdating dyan, di ba? Sa vaccine IDs, magkanya-kanya na naman yung mga LGUs, and then that second question, ano na nga ba nangyari dyan sa vaccine ID na yan?
Well, each local government have their own vaccine ID. Iba-iba yan, no? And it's being honored anywhere, no? Ang naging problem lang, actually hindi siya problem but it's already something being resolved right now, is magkaroon ng tinatawag nating vaccine certificate, no? And right now, everybody, if I'm not mistaken, everybody is now allowed or can apply for a QR code to get their own vaccine certificate. Punta lang kayo sa vaccert.ph, no? Ang problema lang natin doon, at ito inamin naman po ng DICT, is nasa 70% pa yung accuracy in the sense, minsan, magkamali ka ng pag-entry dun sa database mo, pag hindi tama yung pangalan, hindi lumalabas yung pangalan mo for you to be issued a vax certificate. And I experienced that one, hindi lumabas yung vax certificate ko dahil most probably may error sa entry. But eventually, pinoprocess na ngayon yan because, of course, nagsumbong tayo sa kanila of these kinds of situation. But you can already apply, mukhang inopen na po yun. But in the meantime, all the vaccine ID issued by the local governments, no matter how it looks like, it will be honored by the establishments.
Well, speaking of vaccination and LGUs, the acting mayor of Cebu, si Mayor Rama, nag-issue ng order na yung mga workers daw ng City Hall nila, wala daw 13th month pay kapag no vaccination. Is that allowed? Saka, do you need the uniform policy on that?
First of all, yung 13th month pay, kailangan ibigay yan, no? Because being not vaccinated should not be a reason for you to not be given your benefits, including employment, no? I think ang tamang kwento dyan is ibibigay yung Christmas bonus,
sir, which is optional.
And I think yan pwede optional yan na talaga hindi bigay dahil gratis yan eh. It's a gratuity coming from the local government. So pwede talaga sila maglagay ng kondisyon dyan. And part of the discussions we had with the governors and mayors is really to identify incentivizing people so that they can have themselves vaccinated and disincentivizing those people who do not want to be vaccinated.
Yeah, 20,000 daw yun na Christmas bonus. Will you be encouraging? Will you be encouraging other LGUs to do the same?
Most probably because that's part of what we agreed when we met last Thursday on identifying incentives and disincentives, no? Specifically to those who do not want to be vaccinated. And again, these are all gratuity given by the local government. So talagang they can set really the conditions to whom these bonuses will be given.
You mean it was actually discussed to withhold Christmas bonus to the unvaccinated?
Hindi naman. Sinabi lang namin, identify what things that you can incentivize or incentives to those people so that they can be vaccinated and give these incentives to those who do not want to be vaccinated. It was more of a general discussion.
Okay, sir, before we have limited time for this segment, I do want to talk about other things, other LGUs. Ano po bang basa nyo? I mean, we're a bit optimistic now in NCR dahil mataas na nga ang vaccination rates, but are there any particular regions or provinces that are emerging as concerns for the DILG?
Well, in the 2 weeks back, we had some problems because the average vaccination rate nationwide outside of the national capital region is less than 30% on the average. BARM was was the lowest at 9%, and CAR was at 39%. But in the last 2 weeks, vaccination has been moving up. In fact, we had a record vaccination of 1.1 million vaccinations in one day, I think, last week, no? And right now, medyo umaangat na. And I think it's averaging already close to 35%. And we continue to receive a lot of positive feedback on the ground of people wanting to be vaccinated. In fact, the survey last September, that 64% wants to be vaccinated. I would think that it's higher today, no? That survey was in September, but in October, based on the feedback that we got on the ground, a lot of people really wanted to be vaccinated already. And because of the influx of doses or vaccines coming in, I think close to 40 million are already on the ground distributed to the various local government units. And we expect another 40 to 45 million until December. I think we will be awash with vaccines, and it's just a matter of convincing people on the ground that hindi sila magiging zombie pag binakunahan. Akala ko biro yun, yung pala totoo talaga. One of the feedback we got is many thought ang iniisip nila magiging zombie daw sila pag sila yung nabakunahan. And we've addressed that already.
Saan lugar yung zombie na yan? Kasi there were only about a handful of regions na sinabing maraming ang takot magpabakuna eh. Saan lugar yan? Saka ano yung mga na-track nyo na pinakamalalaking reasons for vaccine hesitancy?
Sa Kabisayaan, marami yan. Cebu, for instance, 2 weeks ago, only have a vaccination rate of 20%. No? It has gone up right now to 20 to 25%, 25 to 26%, and it continues to go up. No? So, yun ang mga vaccine hesitancy, mamamatay daw sila kasi yung kapitbahay nila namatay nung binakunahan, yung mga ganong klaseng pagdududa, no, or hesitancy. But we're trying to address it right away, and the best example that we're telling them is the National Capital Region, where 90% has been fully vaccinated of the target population, and close to 97%, at least with one dose, and it has already improved the cases. Ang cases na lang sa NCR ngayon is an average of 400 cases a day, and our healthcare utilization rate on the ICU, it's less than 40%, and sa ward natin, ward COVID beds is less than 30%. So, we're already in the low-risk situation. Not to mention that moving forward, amongst all the regions and the local government units, it's only the National Capital Region who may be eligible to be to be de-escalated to Alert 1 level if the COVID case data continues to improve.
So yung zombies sa Cebu, sa Visayas.
Meron.
Okay, DILG Undersecretary Ipamako Densing. Sir, maraming salamat po.
Ingat, sir.
Thank you, and good evening.
We will take a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
welcome back to the Chief Show on One News. And now joining us is Attorney Bruce Rivera. We're bringing in Attorney Rivera because he is a very close friend of Mayor Sara Duterte. Attorney Bruce, welcome back and good to have you back.
Hello.
Good evening, Attorney.
Can you hear us?
Good evening. Yeah.
Okay. Sige.
Good evening to everyone. Good evening to all the televiewers of the Chief.
Okay, magandang gabi, Attorney Bruce.
Yes,
Well,
po.
of course, ang dami nangyari ngayong araw, nakakahilo. Yung mga nasa port area nga, hindi mo alam kung paano pipihit. Pero anyway, kasi of course, we've heard about Baste, we've heard about Sara. At the same time, you were earlier quoted as saying na from your knowledge, si Sara is not interested in the presidency pa rin and she may opt for the vice presidency. We're wondering if that's the latest that you've heard and that's based on recent conversation. And how do you react to this more recent report? Of course, unconfirmed, you know how it goes. Pero iba naman yung kanyang pihit.
Well, let's see about that. I'm not really sure about what has been said, but of course, ako naman I'm basing it on my conversations with Inday Sara. Na sinasabi talaga niya na hindi siya tatakbo bilang pangulo. So we are, knowing Sara, yun ang nakikita ko na she seldom takes back things na nasasabi niya. However, hindi natin alam, bilog ang bola at saka let's face it, marami talaga yung gusto na siya ay tumakbong presidente. Marami ang gusto yon. So I cannot really discount that possibility, but at the end of the day, either way, I'm happy that she's considering a run in the national position if she confirms. Yes.
But Attorney Bruce, let's start from the basic. What other motivation is there that would compel her to pull out of a re-election bid in Davao?
Well, motivations for her to pull out. Well, number one, maybe she's tired of politics. Pwede yun. That's one of those. She already made a promise before that will be her last term as mayor. And in fact, even when PRD ran for the presidency, one of the conditions for him to run was for Inday Sara to go back as mayor of Davao City. So technically, she's not really like that, that invested in a public position. In this regard, but at this point in time, sana naman hindi ganoon ang rason, ang dahilan.
But Attorney Bruce, if she is seeking a national position, mukhang ang malinaw lang ngayon is she will be running in tandem with Bongbong Marcos.
I think we have already established that as early as when we the infamous breakfast meeting where I myself and Inday Sara and Amy Marcos had breakfast in Cebu. That already was we already established the fact that they have already been in communication with each other, the teams, the Inday Sara team and of course the BBM team. But however, I have never confirmed or nor have confirmed that they are, in talks of an actual tandem. And in fact, Inday Sara has already been clear about that there's really no such thing. But at that in that breakfast meeting, she intimated to us that she's seriously considering it. And in fact, I think there have been things in the brewing at that point wherein there was a survey conducted. They wanted to do an online poll to see if she's really indeed a viable vice presidential candidate.
So 2 questions. Yung isa unresolved, of course, kung sino sa kanila yung magiging president and running mate. And the other is what happens to the candidates of the PDP Laban, the party of her father. Diba? Anong tingin niyo? Kasi Senator Bong Go kanina, parang namamaalam na sa kandidatura niya eh. So anong mangyayari kay Senator Bong Go and of course Senator Bato de la Rosa?
Well, ang unang question, what was the first question again? Parang nawala ako.
Yung hindi natin masasagot yung una kung sino ang magiging president at vice president between her.
Mahirap. Yeah.
Pero yung mangyayari sa mga PDP laban candidates, because Mayor Sara also said she doesn't
Yes.
intend to join the PDP laban. And I don't think Bongbong Marcos is intending to join the party either.
Yun nga talaga yung clear. Of course, we already know that that has already been offered on the table by PRD himself to Inday Sara, taking Bong Go as vice president, or even trying to join the PDP. And Inday Sara has never joined, or never clearly has been averse to that idea. So I don't think that's going to be doable at this point. However, of course, there are some people who are also speculating that perhaps there might be a Sarah Bong, tandem. Hope springs eternal at this point in time, especially those who really are into that mind thinking. But at the end of the day, I think General Bato is like a good soldier would have to, he said that if Inday Sara is running, then he would have to consider pulling out or doing some sort of withdrawal. But at this point in time, all of these things are merely speculative, because we are not even sure if Inday Sara is indeed running or doing an actual farewell to politics by not running for mayor.
Yeah, but Attorney Bruce, maybe you could reconcile something for me, just a detail, because sabi nyo nga, she said, sige, open ako, maybe vice president, and then I'm curious to see what the surveys will show, diba? And that's really encouraging.
Yes.
But it's also more than encouraging on the presidential race. Diba? I mean, the surveys also show her at top. Why wouldn't she even discuss? I'm not saying consider, but even discuss, if I'm getting it correctly, why wouldn't she discuss the option to run for president if the surveys there are also encouraging for her?
Well, in the first place, I think she has her own reason. We don't really know the reason per se. I never dared ask for the reason. I think she has her own thought as to all of these. There's so many people in the camp of supporting President Duterte and the Duterte supporters who really believe that Inday Sara should be president. But at the end of the day, it's Inday Sara who will actually decide for it herself. And it's not, and she has also been very clear about, being still young. And one of those things that we argue a lot is the fact that, she has enough time to be president. She can, she'll be more prepared and stuff like that. And I said, no, the nation needs you now. But at the end of the day, she has to make the decision, and she has to, I think, lower her expectations and lower her bravado, perhaps, in order for her to actually consider a national position.
What about Davao City? What about the position of mayor in Davao City? Yes, we do know that Sara said that Baste is going to replace her as a mayoral candidate. But at the same time, Baste is not exactly a veteran in politics. And the family might be facing a bit of a political battle there versus an old-timer in the form of the son of the former mayor, si Rui Lopez. Wouldn't that be a big risk for the Dutertes? Not unless the president steps in and runs for mayor again.
Well, for me personally, I think Baste has all the experience. It's just the fact that he has big shoes to fill, perhaps. In fact, when Inday Sara started her mayoralty bid as mayor of Davao City, she underwent the same baptism of fire. So at the end of the day, I think Baste is more than prepared to face the challenge. For me personally, yeah.
So you think the family is willing to gamble in this? I do remember 2019, si Baste ran for vice mayor and won, but he was unopposed.
Yes. For me, ako personal sa akin ito. I think the Dutertes have, they're a family that actually they don't really. I don't see this as a unified action, because each and every one of them have their own decisions as to how they will pursue their own political agendas and their own political career. So it's not the Dutertes per se saying that. It's more, trying to consider each of them as a personality or as a person deciding, because if it's a risk, of course it's a risk, but at the end of the day, are they willing to take the risk with all the political political arsenal or political yung mga sinasabi natin mga puhunan nila na they did on Davao City for them to hold on to that position. And I think Mayor Sara telling Baste to run for mayor is, I think, enough imprimatur on the part of the voters to see that indeed also Baste is worthy to be mayor.
Well, nabanggit na ni Ed yung scenario. There's a lot of speculation as well that President Duterte himself might run for mayor of Davao City. Can you rule that out at this point, knowing what you know about the family?
First of all, I think I was one of those who breached the idea that President Duterte may return to Davao City as mayor at the end of the day, because Inday Sara told me before na talagang pinag-usapan nila ni PRD na yung Davao ay talagang idol sa kanilang dalawa. Kaya nga hindi napunta kay Pulong initially. But at this point, hindi ko ma-rule out din yung that possibility that PRD would run. But knowing what I know now, mukhang gusto na nila talagang mukhang si PRD ay gusto na rin talagang mag-retire. If I'm hearing what I'm hearing in the bus fields.
Mag-retire, not to run for the Senate, because that's another scenario being floated by his party, no? By the
yes, that was considered as well, running for a senator, but I think it's a far-fetched notion, pero it's up there, it's out there, and I think President Duterte just wants that idea in mind, just to titillate the people, and of course cause hypertension on his enemies and his critics.
Why would you consider it a far-fetched idea for him to run for the Senate?
Because I think number one, he perhaps the survey where he was second to Soto really created some sort of not really doubt, but more of a dampened spirit on the part of PRD. And I think many of his supporters, including myself, really believe that he has served he has done a lot for the country already. We may need him, but it's not like in that capacity where we expect him to work like a horse, like what he did in the past 5 years and 6 years. So he was our president during the pandemic, and I think many of the supporters believe that he deserves the rest, and he should be given that.
Attorney Bruce, I'll ask you to I guess the word here really is speculate. I'm not asking you to talk about Sara. I'm not going to ask you about Mayor Sara Duterte. I do want to ask you about Bong Go, because I was watching his video earlier. And my personal sense of it was he was genuinely hurt. That he was genuinely, everybody saying, scripted to. Everybody knows their place, moro-moro to. But I don't know, nobody's ever accused Senator Bong Go of being a good actor. And I mean that in a good way. In the sense that when I saw him and heard his quivering voice earlier, my sense of it was, this guy's genuinely hurt. And there's real bitterness there in some of the things that he said. My question is, was he left out of the loop here? Was there an element here where he was genuinely surprised by the decision not only of Sara Duterte, but also it seems to be the directive for him to step aside?
In all honesty, this is one thing that I would be telling people that many people won't believe, but the saga that we have experienced from October 8th, even before October 8th until the present, that was not scripted. It was far from scripted. Nobody wants to be in that position. I myself have been in the middle of it all, and it's really something that we see as walang gagawa ng ganito kasing kagulong script. More importantly, I think Bong Go is also like the usual loyal servant that he is, and loyal assistant to the president that he has always been. maybe perhaps he has or may have other plans, but I think he is always happy to oblige and stand by the president's decision. And I think perhaps that's one of those things that he may not agree upon, but has to do, being a good and loyal subject. And I appreciate him for that.
Oh, okay, Attorney, can you speak to us about the current dynamics between father and daughter? Kasi in previous interviews with you, you've always reminded us na, you have to look at the way they interact because there are a lot of things happening between the two that the public does not really know about, and they don't always see eye to eye. So from what you've heard, saan ngayon sino at anong tinatayuan nila? Ano ang dynamics ngayon ng mag-ama?
At the end of the day, mag-ama pa rin sila. Hindi mo talaga mawawala yun. Number one, they are both strong people. They're both opinionated. They're both headstrong. They're both strong individuals. They have both minds of their own. And they're both leaders in their own right. So ibig sabihin nun, if they're both alpha persons, you expect sparks to fly. And you expect a lot of conflict and head-on collisions. But at the end of the day, they're father and daughter. So they have to, they would always agree on something. And we are praying that one of those is this, This is one of those things that we really want to happen because unlike other families wherein they are in constant communication, these two are too busy with their specific positions that they cannot, it's really something, a big deal for them to be talking to each other on a regular basis. And it's not as if, they can text or chat with each other. I think I even have more time chatting with Inday rather than PRD doing that because of his schedule. So for me personally, it's the usual dynamics of a strong father and a strong daughter. But we have to understand that these are people who are also extraordinarily situated, that a lot of things may cause for them to be further apart.
For example, alam ba ng Pangulo na magwi-withdraw ang kanyang anak sa pagka-alkalde?
Personally, I think we know that PRD was there on the weekend before the announcement by Baste and before the announcement by Inday Sara. So, one would presume that there was knowledge because hindi naman din pwede na hindi malalaman ni PRD to for him not to be talking to the people close to him like Bong Go and General Bato. So siguro ang tingin ko meron talagang idea. Kasi even last week na-float na rin yung idea na baka nga magkakaroon ng tandem. Ako, I didn't believe it. Of course, because I was still waiting for PRD to return to Davao, and then the weekend when he went to Davao, well, I was praying that could happen.
Well, dahil mag-ama, inevitably, the performance of one affects the other, no? And
Definitely.
According to the ratings, tuloy-tuloy yata yung pagbaba ng numbers ni President Duterte. And it might rub off. You think it will rub off on Mayor Sara's chances or any position she might aspire for in 2020?
In the first place, I think even if it's falling, still record highs for people for a president similarly situated. So nobody has even gone that far or dreamed to have gone that far. More importantly, I think PRD Sara's always been very successful in separating herself from the father, and that's the reason why many people have really pushed for her to be president, because I think she's another Duterte, not the Rodrigo Duterte that we think that we need. We think that we are voting for. For me, I think people would see more Bongo as somebody who will be the Rodrigo Duterte continuation, but Inday Sara is the Duterte continuation because she is a Duterte, but she's not really Rodrigo Roa Duterte, but a different Duterte, equally better or equally good and equally illustrious.
You think people will actually be able to make that distinction? Kasi if the fall in the ratings of the president is sustained, medyo malaki-laki yun by the time election day rolls around. From 62 to 2, no?
Yeah, many people can stipulate and can speculate, but at the end of the day, we just have to realize that the people who are rating President Duterte now knows they're rating President Duterte without Sara Duterte in mind. However, if you look at the surveys, still Sara is number one. So clearly, that is something that people have considered and people will consider, that though they are Duterte supporters, they will not be voting for the same person. And these are two different individuals.
Yeah, we like talking with Attorney Bruce. I mean, di naman po kaila sa inyo. Kapatid din namin yan dito sa TV5, sa Radyo 5, and so on. Bruce doesn't hide the fact that, of course, you are a supporter of Sara Duterte. You are very supportive of Mr. Duterte. At the same time, you are a political commentator as well. So I'll ask you to put on that hat. In this context, medyo maiba tayo. There was a drug raid in Davao the other evening, 17 people arrested, and among other things, she was not part of that among the 17 arrested, but confirmed that she was there at that party, the information officer of Mayor Sara Duterte, where the raid netted a lot of drugs. So this is, we're talking about Jeffrey Tupas. My question is, how sensitive is that situation right now? I mean, particularly for the Duterte standing on an anti-drug, anti-crime platform all of this time, and then having somebody that close to something really that's quite explosive in Davao right now. And how do you expect her to handle it?
Well, for me, I think Sarah would always handle it like the way she would handle people in her keep. Number one, nobody expects all of us to to monitor the ins and outs and doings of our staff. I personally know that. However, of course, she has the city government has already terminated Mr. Tupas, and I think in a way, clearly this is something that is not a good a good look. But at the end of the day, these are things that we should accept and move forward to. And of course, it may be used against Inday Sara, but who everyone everyone has issues and baggages that clearly are trying circumstances for individuals. But me personally, I think that this is more the problem of Mr. Tupas than the problem of Inday Sara, because if nobody can monitor a person 24/7, you cannot even monitor a husband and a wife.
Yeah.
So,
Attorney Bruce, that would be true, except that another question that people are asking is whether or not Jeffrey Tupas did in fact leave the party when she said she left, which also raises the question with a lot of people was Jeffrey Tupas there or not when the raid happened, which leads to the question which people are still speculating on. If there was some kind of intervention, then that's no longer about Jeffrey Tupas.
Yeah, of course. Clearly, there are speculations about that, but for me personally, I think as an individual, I think the raid happened not in Davao City, but I think in Davao Oriental, outside of the jurisdiction of Inday Sara. So, in a way, if there are special treatments or condonation done, I think it should be investigated. Number one. Number two, and I don't think Inday Sara would be the one to encourage that or even do that, or even be the one to insinuate that. That's not the person I know. So for me, I think if there are insinuations that are like that, then investigations should be undertaken, and of course, and possibly, of course, heads should roll if there are any. But at the end of the day, these are all speculations.
There are some Davao observers who are saying that the Duterte's grip on the city is slipping. Is that an accurate perception? Is that an accurate analysis?
I really don't know about slipping, because for me, I think all Davaoenos have been clearly very supportive of the president. And in fact, for me personally, they would even want they're the ones who will lose in this regard, because clearly Inday Sara is somebody that they want to be their leader, and many of them are happy that she is staying on as mayor. But at the end of the day, they have to give in to the nation. So I think it takes a lot of uh, it takes a lot of sacrifices for the people of Davao, and of course when they say gripping, elections would only tell that, would be the one who will tell us that story, for example, of the idea of gripping power. But at this point in time, I don't see anything that will rock the vote.
So in the meantime, going back to the options for Sara Duterte, while we're still speculating and while we're waiting for November 15 to stop all speculations, what else are we watching for between now and November 15? I imagine swearing in at some political party?
Well, I'm not a political. I'm not engaged in any of these formations. But I think the BBM team has already been trying to coordinate its group. I think the opposition under under VP Leni is already also doing their stuff, and of course the other presidentiables have been already consolidating. So I think a lot of consolidation and a lot of prayers will be coming in the coming days, because of course a lot of people will have to reconsider their chances, because clearly a team up of BBM and Sara, well, is formidable, at least.
But whatever position she runs for, she will have to join a party to substitute for somebody else. Which of the parties do you think she's closest to, or she's willing to go into?
Well, I've heard that it's going to be Lakas CMD. Ang balita lang, chismis. Of course, not confirmed. We have not heard anything, because I know that HNP is a regional party. She cannot run under HNP. So I have no idea, of course. But what I heard was that I think it's GMA who is brokering that notion that it's going to be under Lakas CMD. And everything is just speculative at this point. And for me personally, I really don't care what party, honestly, for as long as she runs.
No, but I mean, that's a good point. I mean, you don't care about the party. My question is, sa pagkakakilala mo, and for lack of a better term, name-personal ba or nagtatanim ba si Sara Duterte? I ask only because in this context, because with PDP Laban, it's interesting that you said Lakas CMD, no? Because with PDP Laban, she really had some really harsh words and choice words for PDP Laban. I mean, I'm really calling them clowns and saying anong klaseng partido yan and so on. It's one thing to basically try to negate the narrative that her critics are saying na, ayan, you're going back on your word, na tatakbo ka rin pala. And then another thing, to swallow everything you've said and then sign on as a party member in particular with PDP Laban. So I'm wondering lang, sa pagkakilala mo, pagka nagalit siya sa isang tao o sa isang partido, can she still rise above that?
No. Honestly, Sara is very parang it's very difficult to really to get her to be angry at to be very angry, to burn bridges. She's very diplomatic. She's very tactful. Unless it's going to be in a point of no return. And konti lang naman talaga yung nasabihan niya ng ganyan, like Alvarez and PDP. So, and even before, she has already been clear about saying that she's not joining PDP for reasons that she has intimated before pa. So I don't think the PDP anything to do with PDP is viable at this point, because that's how I know her. Parang that's it's not holding a grudge. It's more sticking to the word that she has said, because seldom would she release something without actually meaning it. Pinag-isipan niya ng matagal. So mas kung may chance man, I think it's going to be more BBM's party or the Lakas CMD as an option.
Okay. Attorney Bruce Rivera, always a pleasure having you here,
Thank
Bruce.
you.
Maraming salamat.
Ingat, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Salamat. Magandang gabi po.
And that's all for this edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.